The police in Canada seem to be incapable of learning. They don't seem to realize that they're in a new era where everyone has cell phones, and what they do is under surveillance. I've always been fairly proud of the way the Canadian police forces have operated, whether it's the RCMP or even the city police. I've had the opportunity of living in Africa and Asia, and I traveled through most of Europe, and well, actually through about 60 countries. So I have had a chance to see the police forces in many countries, including what used to be the Soviet bloc countries in Eastern Europe. And so I have seen police that act with impunity and without due process of law. I've been in Bangladesh where when you have a traffic violation, you pay the police officer right on the spot, and you know that money goes into his pocket and doesn't get sent to the authorities. And if you're a woman in Bangladesh and you have been raped and you go to the police to complain, almost for sure you're going to be raped again by the police. So by comparison, Canada is doing very, very well. I think we still have a better police force than most areas of the world. That having been said, the police seem to be incapable of realizing that what they're doing is under surveillance. There's something on radio and TV just recently where a Vancouver city police officer arrested a man who rode his bike without a helmet through and didn't stop at a stop sign. And in the process, sucker punched the fellow while he was putting handcuffs on him. And this is, of course, all being videoed. And there didn't appear to be any justification for the sucker punch. Now, in days gone by, that would have gone without any incident at all. But of course, it's now recorded. It's on the local news, and so the police are going to have to address it. But it seems to me that to solve this, there needs to be a civilian put in charge of the various police forces. If it's the RCMP, then it should be a civilian in charge. I know there was a civilian recently for about 3 years that the federal government put in power, and no change occurred, and he was essentially run out by the staff, that there's no cooperation. Now the question is whether or not he was the problem or whether the police were the problem. Now I suspect that in his case he was part of the problem, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. In my view, there should always be somebody in charge of organizations who have not necessarily come up through the ranks. I won't speak about the military because I don't know enough about that. But if you're looking at any government organization, whether it's the Department of Agriculture, you don't have to have an agrologist as the deputy minister. If you're looking at the Attorney General's department, you should not have a lawyer in charge of the Department of the Attorney General. If it's the Department of Health, there's no need to have a doctor or a nurse as the Deputy Minister of Health. And the same thing goes with the police forces. You need to have somebody who has good management background and who is not beholden to the military style attitude that exists in the various police forces. And I think it's important for the RCMP and the provincial police forces to get this straight, because if they don't, they will end up being the losers in the long run. There have been too many examples where excess power has been utilized, and they go through a process to investigate that takes weeks and months and even years. And all that is needed is to have some civilian with the authority of the person in charge of the police force to do an investigation and report back, and within 1 week a decision should be rendered. There is no need for taking a year or 2 years to make a resolution of these cases. There may be occasionally where it would take longer than a week, but generally speaking it shouldn't be more than a week. And we need to get on top of this, and the police themselves are the ones that are going to have to recognize that this is required. Another example of a problem is the RCMP are building a new facility in Vancouver, and their part of the plans are to build a lounge for the RCMP to drink after their shift, and they feel that they're different. They need to have a members lounge like in the in the military, that they can go to have drinks afterwards. I think that is a major mistake. Can you imagine the foo-for-all there would be that if in the provincial government the deputy minister said, well, we're accosted by the public all the time, and we have to have a lounge just for us to have our drinks after work. Nobody would accept that. So why is it acceptable for the RCMP? The only time I would accept it is if the RCMP agreed to have the Mothers Against Drunk Driving set up a facility outside of the lounge, so that every time an RCMP officer left, they would have to blow into a breathalyzer to see whether their blood alcohol content was below 0.08. If they would agree to that, then I would be prepared to give some consideration to it. But under no other circumstance would I do that, because it's absolutely certain that if an RCMP officer left the lounge and had a blood alcohol content above 0.08, nobody would stop him and he would drive home afterwards. I have no doubt in my mind that that would be the case. And so I think in that case it's absolutely essential that there be some independent monitoring of the police when they leave that facility. My real answer would be that they should not have a lounge in their own facility. But this is just one example of the way in which the RCMP are out of touch with society today.